Oh man. Good morning, YouTube. Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. Voice is a little hoarse this morning, so bear with me here. But as you saw in the preview, and a little bit of a joke, you would think after yesterday's reports, where we have over 1,000 severe weather reports, that we will be done. Guess what? You'd be mistaken. We have an enhanced risk today. This time we're looking at the western high plains, and then we still have a slight risk over here towards southern Georgia, southern Alabama, and central Mississippi, even the panhandle of Florida, more towards the northern sections there. And we also have this marginal risk that even includes more of the New England area. So we're not done by a long shot here. So if we look at the hazards here, there's actually a 5% tornado threat here. It's 2% tornado threat towards Boston. Wind threats at 15%, but now we've switched. We have the hatch risk for hail in effect. I do intend to go live on this. This probably will be mostly a hail stream, but we will be on the lookout for tornadoes as well. So we'll see what happens with that. And then we'll even go ahead and take a look at day 2 because that's interesting as well. This also has a 5% area, particularly across southern parts of Missouri and northern parts of Arkansas. So that's going to be another stream, likely. And then also we have the 15% wind threat and the 5% hail threat for that day. Then on day 3, there's 2 marginal risk areas, one towards the southeast and mid-Atlantic, and then one towards the northern plains. One of these may get upgraded to slight risk, thus continuing the streak. That being said, we'll get into the nitty-gritty at least the next couple of days here. I don't quite have the time to cover the day 3 today, but we'll see what happens with how the weather goes and how my job goes. But pretty robust setup as far as today's concerned. A little bit closer to textbook, especially when you look at the higher levels of the atmosphere here. We go to about 200 millibars, and you can clearly see a pretty well pronounced jet streak over our area of interest here by 21Z. Storms could fire rather early on the northern flank of this, but as we continue to go forward here, it becomes a little bit more pronounced as we get into the evening and overnight hours here. I'm thinking it becomes even more favorable, more so towards maybe western Nebraska later in the evening. I think there might be some inhibition that slows down development to start out the day, but we'll see what happens with that. But we'll watch this jet streak start to move off towards the east here, and then by tomorrow afternoon we'll see a similar setup kind of take shape here across the Ozarks. You can see convergence here, divergence here, and this will be our flashpoint most likely. So far, I haven't seen anything super impressive on soundings this morning. Of course, I'll have to do more digging because I'm kind of making this one on the fly, of course. But if we watch how things develop after that going into Thursday, maybe a little bit early in the afternoon, we could see some severe over here towards the southeast, maybe towards the Carolinas in particular, maybe Virginia again. And then we'll probably see a setup try to develop later into the evening and into the night across the northern plains here. A little bit questionable with that one based off of just 200 alone. We'll take a look at the different levels of the atmosphere. That usually gives a good indicator, so to speak. So we'll go ahead and look, like I said, at today's setup. Pretty solid as far as 500 is concerned. It's not anything like yesterday. I wouldn't expect an outbreak from this, of course, but the threat for a few tornadoes is definitely there. The threat for mostly damaging winds is what's going to stand out to me. The hail parameter is also really good, especially with the lapse rates being as steep as they are. So again, plenty to keep an eye on here. And then as we go onward into Wednesday here, we actually have that 500 starting to really look impressive at this point, especially early into the afternoon here, like I was talking about. It seems more like this would lend towards more of a shortwave setup than anything else. But of course, like I said, looking at 700 will give us a better indicator of that. Also have to look out for this additional area of low pressure here as well as we head from Wednesday into Thursday, excuse me. Got the days mixed up. When we look at 700, I'm trying to get that to roll here. Today's setup does not really have a super strong shortwave until way later into the evening. Tomorrow probably would have the better day. As far as shortwave is set up, kind of see it. You can kind of see it right here. It's this little spot right up in there where I'm interested. It's where I'm thinking the shortwave will be, and that's going to be towards 23Z. So that's going to be mid to late afternoon tomorrow, if this trend holds. That's all a big part of things is timing and trends, of course, with weather. So a little bit of a cheat right there, so to speak. And then, of course, like I said, with this model run, I can only look so far. Lastly, we'll look at the low-level jet. And, of course, as this being a 60-hour run all the way through and through, hour by hour, can't really look at a whole lot at once here. Do see a little pocket of low-level jet kind of develop more so towards Colorado, just off the flank of the mountains. That plus the factor of maybe a gravity wave or two popping up there could a lot for an additional tornado threat. As we go into tomorrow, low-level jet does kind of set up really nicely, and I think maybe the greater tornado threat could end up being more so towards northwestern Arkansas, towards north central or west central Arkansas. And then as time goes on here, of course, we'll have to watch the southeast. I do think we won't be able to keep a lot of this low-level jet energy by Thursday, but of course, like I said, we'll gain more clarity as we go on throughout the day here. As far as dew points and temperatures are concerned, I mean, it's summertime. Gulf of Mexico hasn't been closed off at all this year, so I'm going to see plenty of Gulf of Mexico moisture flow for the southeast here. We do get a nice little moisture nose that develops over towards Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska here. We do get into the mid-60s, which is sufficient enough for severe weather for sure. But like I said, I'm actually still trying to find some really good tour soundings, and so far I haven't. So I don't know if you would call that a comfort. If anything, it would be false comfort, because like I said, I really just woke up and saw that it got upgraded to enhanced risk here. But as we go into Wednesday, of course, we already know the further to the east we go, the richer the Gulf moisture. And in fact, just outside of Tulsa here, we're getting dew points into the 80s by about 6 o'clock. Going to be downright oppressive over there, regardless of whether you get severe weather or not. So definitely make sure you're on the lookout over there. And also, of course, as we know, with the temperatures being hot, heat indices will be high, so make sure you're drinking plenty of water. And if you don't have to be outside, just don't do it. And then as far as Thursday is concerned, we already know the situation. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. So we'll take a look at a couple of different models here once we look at our Cape really quickly today. So, of course, expecting a pretty impressive Cape to develop later in the afternoon across this region here. We're getting up to about 3,000 to 4,000 joules even possible across the mixed layer here. Storms definitely look like they'll fire earlier in the day, but if we can, we'll try and cover it. But by about 6, 7 o'clock my time, which is Eastern time, by the way, we do start to see a slight drop off on Cape. And by the time we get towards about, I'd say, I'm going to do the math in my head, say 8 o'clock Central, maybe even Mountain time, we'll start to see the threat begin to drop off. Towards the southeast as well, there is pretty notable Cape as far as today's setup is concerned, especially earlier in the day. 4,000 joules plus possible here. I actually do a sounding here. We could even see a tour sounding with this. It's marginal. mainly thinking wind's going to be the big threat. In fact, the photograph kind of indicates it as well. Skew T does look pretty interesting there. Not much inhibition, very high decape, and also looks like relative humidity's pretty high, so a few downdrafts could be possible here, maybe even a significant one. So if we look towards Wednesday, probably going to see some, yep, and there it is, there's that ridiculous cape. Could see an increased threat maybe towards Oklahoma as well. But these are very contaminated sounding, so I can't really garner too much faith in these. That being said, keep it moving here. We might even see an overnight threat towards Arkansas as well, so that's going to be another interesting thing to look for on tomorrow's setup. We'll see if that trend holds too, and then as we look towards 60 hours out, the max in the model run, we do start to see a lot of instability rebuilding across the southeast and maybe sneaking its way into the mid-Atlantic. So we'll go ahead and take a look at IR satellite today, or our IR satellite for the next couple of days. This is infrared satellite, so the brighter the colors, usually the higher the probability the cloud tops will be higher, or the colder the cloud tops, I should say. So as we look through today, storms actually look like they develop towards northeastern Colorado a little earlier, towards southern Colorado and Kansas. It looks like things kind of develop late. So it looks like we may have a shot at least getting something. And then when we look towards, look towards Wednesday here, it's by 15Z, we do see a little bit of action, maybe a little bit of an MCS going on here. And then on the tail end of that, later in the evening, it does look like we get some action going on here by 22. And it does kind of ramp up by the time we get towards OOZ, which would be about 6 or 7 o'clock towards this region. Then after that, we start to probably see that MCS move across the southeast early in the day, and then we probably will get some reformation developing later in the day from daytime heating, should these clouds clear. That looks like the trend that I'm seeing here. And then lastly, of course, here's reflectivity. Definitely going to hone in more so on the western plains in particular, especially considering the enhanced risk that we have there for hail and maybe even a tornado or two. So this is towards 23Z here. It's interesting that we had some pretty big cloud tops developing already at this point. But over towards this region, we start to see development around OOZ, and then this really starts to pick up by the time we get towards O3Z. But like I said, the window looks like it's going to be a pretty small one. And then after that, we're done there. We'll actually get to see these storms really start to take off as we head later into Wednesday. So already kind of has that look of maybe even a squall line trying to develop here. Maybe even a little something bowing out later in the evening and into the overnight. So definitely be on the lookout if you're towards northeast Oklahoma, Arkansas, and parts of Missouri as far as Wednesday's setup is concerned. But I hope you guys found this update useful. Trying to keep everything going. We're close to 500 subs, by the way. I also want to thank you guys for that. Definitely trying to see if maybe I can get there by Friday. My mom wanted me to try to get 500 subs before her birthday or at her birthday. Would love it if we could get there. But anyway, got to get going, got to get ready for work. So appreciate everyone who's watched. Appreciate everyone being here. It's been Tire Metalhead Weatherman. You know what to do. Smash that like button. Decimate the subscribe button and also the share button as well. And I'll see you guys a little later today. Until then, take care.